Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Hey, Catholic pilgrims! Welcome to day 86 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. So today we're going to be talking about living a life of faith. And a lot of people have a different take on that. But I think looking at the saints and the holy ones that have given their lives fully to God is probably the right way to look at it. So we will be reading from Notebook 1, numbers 351 through 355. Oh my God, how sweet it is to suffer for you, suffer in the most secret recesses of the heart, in the greatest hiddenness, to burn like a sacrifice noticed by no one, pure as crystal, with no consolation or compassion. My spirit burns in act of love. I waste no time in dreaming. I take every moment singly as it comes, for this is within my power. The past does not belong to me, the future is not mine. With all my soul, I try to make use of the present moment. January 4th, 1935, the first chapter of Mother Borgia. At the chapter, Mother Borgia stressed a life of faith and fidelity in small things. Halfway through the chapter, I heard these words: I desire that you would all have more faith at the present time. How great is my joy at the faithfulness of my spouse in the smallest things. Then I looked at the crucifix, and I saw that Jesus' head was turned towards the refectory, and his lips were moving. When I told Mother Superior about it, she answered, You see, sister, how Jesus demands that our life be a life of faith? When Mother left for the chapel and I stayed to set the room in order, I heard these words: Tell all the sisters that I demand that they live in the spirit of faith towards the superiors at this present time. I begged my confessor to release me from this duty. As I was talking to a certain person who was to paint the image, but for certain reasons was not painting it, I heard this voice in my soul: I want her to be more obedient. I understood that our efforts, no matter how great, are not pleasing to God if they do not bear the seal of obedience. I am speaking about a religious soul. Oh God, how easy it is to know your will in the convent. We religious have God's will set clearly before our eyes from morning till night, and in moments of uncertainty, we have our superiors through whom God speaks. 1934 to 1935. New Year's Eve. I was given permission not to go to sleep, but rather pray in the chapel. One of the sisters had asked me to offer an hour of adoration for her. I said yes, and prayed for her for an hour. During the hour, God gave me to understand how very pleasing the soul was to him. I offered the second hour of adoration for the conversion of sinners, and I tried especially to offer expiation to God for the insults that were being committed against him at this present moment. How greatly God is being offended. I offered the third hour for my spiritual director. I fervently prayed for light for him in a particular matter. Finally, the clock struck 12, the last hour of the year. I finished it in the name of the Holy Trinity, and I also started the first hour of the new year in the name of the Holy Trinity. I asked each of the three persons to bless me, and with great confidence looked toward the new year, which certainly would not be sparing of suffering. So, I became Catholic in 2009, September of 2009. And pretty soon after I became Catholic, we moved to California, to Edwards Air Force Base. And my husband and I were now really starting to get on track with our faith. And because now we were, together. We were all Catholic in the family. And so we went to a Christian bookstore and we decided that we were going to get a book to read together that, we could start, learning more about our faith and start being, more inspired to be better Catholics. Well, there wasn't a ton of books at this Christian bookstore that were Catholic. So we picked up a book from Francis Chan, who is a Christian pastor. He used to be in California. He has stepped away from the scene, and there are rumors he is getting closer and closer to Catholicism, which doesn't surprise me. My husband and I often looked at each other and were like, why is this guy not Catholic? Anyway, After we read the book, which we really, really enjoyed, can't think of the name of it right now, but we watched a video of him, and he was talking, about living a life of faith, basically. And at one point in his talk, he was sharing a story about, it was either his mother-in-law or his mother. I can't remember which one. Anyway, he was telling the crowd how devoted this person was to her faith. Like, she would pray all the time, and she did not mess around with worldly things at all. And he told this story where he was like, I asked her to come to the movies with us, and she was like, why would I go to the movies? And he's like, well, entertainment, come see a good movie with us. And she's like, I could be praying instead. And he was like, oh, okay. And when I heard that, I was kind of like, okay, that's a little much there. My goodness, you can't even go see a movie. But then he started talking, and he said, what I realized was my mother, or my mother-in-law, was so close to Christ, and she was so connected to him in prayer, that a lot of the worldly stuff just seemed so frivolous to her. She ended up going to the movie with them, and when they walked out, he was like, hey, did you like it? And she was like, yeah, it was good, but I would have rather spent that time in prayer. And he was like, oh. But he went on to say she lived a life of faith. All this other stuff didn't matter to her anymore. And what we couldn't see is that she's so connected to Christ that the things of this world just didn't do it for her anymore. And at that point, I was newly Catholic. I was just getting back into my faith, really. When I heard that story, I was like, that just seems a little extreme to me. And I'm not telling you this story because I don't think you should ever watch a movie again. Movies can be good and teach lessons and have a really good, theme and moral discussion. That's not the point I'm trying to make. What I am trying to make here is living a life of faith. And her superior has a great quote in here. She says, you see, sister, how Jesus demands that our life be a life of faith. And so often we like to compartmentalize our faith. Yeah, I live my faith on Sundays when I go to Mass, or maybe holy days of obligation, those types of things. But the rest of the time, I'm a person who lives in the world. And yes, we do live in the world. But we tend to have our secular life and our Sunday Mass life. Even our culture tells us, you need to keep your religious life over here. Keep it over here. Don't bring it out. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it at all because it totally offends me. So if you could just hide behind that rock, yeah, that would be great. Okay, thank you. And we comply. We're like, oh yes, everything must be separated. We don't want to offend anyone with our religious practices. Now, I'm not saying we have to go out and kneel on the sidewalk and make people walk around us while we're praying or anything like that, or be obnoxious about our faith life. In no way should we hide our faith life. We should be proud to wear our sacramentals, our crucifixes, our miraculous medals, Benedict medals, anything like that. We should be proud to decorate our homes with our, statues of saints and, paintings of our Lord and Mary. We should not hide those things away. We should, not feel ashamed to pray before a meal in public. We don't have to sit there and shout out a prayer, but to silently pray. And, people can see that we're praying, and that's not why we're doing it, but we shouldn't hide it for fear of somebody getting upset. I get sick of trying to hide parts of my life for fear of people getting upset, especially in a world where everybody's cramming stuff down our throats that's immoral. So we have to live a life of faith 24/7. One of the things when I was growing up, I'm not trying to blame anybody, but my faith life was really only lived on Sundays at church. And I didn't understand that this was to permeate everything in our lives. And because it didn't permeate everything in my life, I didn't understand the gravity of what was going on with my relationship with Christ and my call as a Christian to bring God's light to the world, I didn't understand the magnitude of it all. And so I wasn't living a life of faith. Now I can see, I'm not at the point where I'm not going to go watch a movie because I want to spend hours and hours in prayer, though that's good. But I can see now, as I'm trying to live my faith more fully and let it permeate every day of my life, every hour of my life, I can see now why Francis Chan's mother or mother-in-law made that comment. Because she was shedding the things of this world for the things of God. And now it starts to make sense. And listening to Sister Faustina and how Christ wants us to be faithful in even the smallest things. Because if we can be faithful in small things, it will strengthen us to be faithful in big things. Watching people that live a life of faith is a beautiful thing. They have something about them. My husband's grandparents were devout Catholics, and it permeated their every being. They got up early in the morning. They went to early mass. They came home. They prayed rosaries. They were constant volunteers at church for this and that. His grandmother made rosaries. They were, delivering food to people. It permeated every aspect of their lives, and they were a very, very loving couple. And my husband learned so much from their example. And so, like I said, I'm not saying we can't ever enjoy entertainment, or we can't, go out and have a nice time, but instead we need to just stay holed up in our house praying all the time. But we need to make our lives a prayer. St. Paul tells us that. Pray always without ceasing. Well, in reality, we can't just be on our knees 24 hours a day praying without ceasing. But what we can do is live a life of faith. Make good choices when we watch movies. Make good choices when we listen to music. If we're going to read something that's wholesome or teaches us a really good moral truth. Wear things that, show our dignity. Those are the types of things that can help us do the bigger things. Go to holy days of obligation. Say your prayer before dinner or before you go to bed as a family. Come together and say some prayers. Let it permeate your life, and you will watch it change. I promise you. So, that is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 87. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.